My cousin humiliated my autistic son in front of dozens of people. We walked out, and she retaliated by calling CPS to try and take him away, without realizing how fast the tables can turn. The world, for my son Mikey and me, was a carefully calibrated ecosystem. As a father to a wonderfully unique boy with semi-low functioning autism, my primary mission was to shield him from the harshness of a world that often misunderstood his joy, his stimming, and his need for routine. We had our rituals, our quiet understanding, and a love that required no elaborate words. The flip side of this sacred bond was the quiet, persistent sting of exclusion. Birthday parties, casual dinners, even family gatherings often came with a polite but firm subtext. We'd love to see you, but perhaps it's best if Mikey stays home. I had learned to swallow my anger and my hurt, choosing instead to create a universe of joy for Mikey within our own four walls. This is why, when the invitation to my cousin Vanessa's wedding arrived, my first feeling was a cautious tremor of hope. Vanessa was family. Her mother, my aunt, had always been kind, if somewhat distant. Surely this would be different. I sat Mikey down, using the visual schedule board that helped him process new information. "Mikey," I said, pointing to a picture of a church and then a family, "Aunt Vanessa is getting married. There will be a big party. Do you think you would like to go?" His reaction was everything. His face, usually a canvas of thoughtful concentration, broke into a radiant, unguarded smile. He began to jump up and down, a full-body expression of pure elation, his hands flapping joyfully at his sides. "Really, Daddy? Really? I can go." The wonder in his voice was a testament to how rare such invitations were. When I exclaimed an enthusiastic yes, he launched himself into my arms, and we twirled around the living room, a dizzying dance of shared happiness. In that moment, I wasn't a father managing a disability. I was just a dad sharing an exciting moment with his son. In the days leading up to the wedding rehearsal, we prepared meticulously. We role-played the ceremony, practicing what quiet hands and inside voice meant in a big, echoey church. Mikey was a star student, eager to please and understand the rules of this special event. As we drove to the church, I felt an unfamiliar sense of normalcy, a belief that we were about to participate in a cherished family milestone. The rehearsal started smoothly. Mikey held my hand tightly, his body thrumming with contained excitement. He was fascinated by the stained glass windows, the hushed tones, the solemnity of the proceedings. About halfway through, I felt his hand squeeze mine. I looked down to see him smiling that specific, tight-lipped smile he reserves for moments of overwhelming happiness. It was a silent signal between us, a shared secret of contentment. I squeezed back, a silent, "I know, buddy, me too." We were a picture of quiet observance. Then, Vanessa reached the altar. Instead of focusing on her groom-to-be, her gaze swept over the small assembled group and landed directly on us. Her face contorted into a mask of pure irritation. "Excuse me," her voice cut through the quiet like shattered glass. "What is he doing here?" The air left my lungs. I felt Mikey flinch beside me. He may not have understood the malice, but he felt the sudden, sharp shift in the atmosphere. He was still smiling, a frozen response to the shock, not yet comprehending that he was the target of this public scorn. Vanessa, however, was just getting started. She turned to her fiancé, Thomas, her voice rising to a shrill pitch. "I thought you told him not to come." She was now pointing, her finger a weapon aimed directly at my beautiful, confused son. The whisper started, a sibilant hiss moving through the pews. I saw a few faces etched with disgust, but they were directed at Vanessa. My heart ached when I saw the majority, however, nodding in grim agreement, as if Mikey's silent, smiling presence was an act of deliberate sabotage. A volcanic rage erupted inside me. Visions of shouting the most vile, hateful things flashed through my mind. I wanted to eviscerate her with words, to promise her a lonely future that mirrored the isolation she was so eager to inflict on a child. But I looked at Mikey, whose smile had finally vanished, replaced by a wobbling lip and welling tears. My role was not to escalate, it was to protect, to model grace under fire. So, without a word to anyone, I stood, took Mikey's hand, and we walked out. The click of the church door closing behind us felt like the slamming shut of a door on any illusion of family acceptance I had left. Outside, the meltdown I had feared began. It wasn't just about the noise, it was a storm of confusion and hurt. "Why would she say that about you, Daddy? That was so mean," he sobbed, his body trembling. His beautiful, literal mind had interpreted the "he" as referring to me, shielding himself from the painful truth. My heart shattered and swelled at once. "Son," I said, holding him close as he rocked, "some people are just bitter because they don't know how to be happy themselves." The actual wedding took place 2 days later. Mikey, bless him, believed the rehearsal was the main event. When I left him with his beloved, trusted babysitter, he waved goodbye cheerfully, none the wiser. I, however, went to that wedding with a heavy heart and a plan. I was determined to be the bigger person for the ceremony, to let Vanessa have her day. I smiled, I nodded, I took my seat. It was at the reception, during the dinner, that I decided the time for silence was over. I tapped my glass. The room fell silent. Vanessa, from her seat at the head table, caught my eye and mouthed, "Thank you for not bringing him." She gave me a smug, victorious smile. I smiled back, but mine was made of colder steel. "Thank you all for having me," I began, my voice clear and steady. "As you can see, I am here today without my wonderful son, Mikey." An awkward tension descended. I know many of you shared the concern that he might be a disruption. But Mikey, in his incredible loving way, still wanted to wish the happy couple well. I took out my phone. "I have a message from him." I played the recording. It was a secret I'd captured days before, of Mikey chattering excitedly about the princess bride and the handsome prince, saying he hoped they would be as happy as he was when we ate ice cream. His voice, so full of innocent, uncomplicated joy, echoed through the room. I saw tissues dabbing eyes. I saw hardened faces soften. Vanessa's face, however, was a thundercloud of fury. She was trapped, forced to raise a glass in a toast to the child she had so publicly rejected. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. It was merely the prelude to the real storm. The next morning, a sharp knock echoed through our home. It was a woman from Child Protective Services. She was young, her demeanor a blend of bureaucratic efficiency and barely concealed suspicion. She asked vague questions before brushing past me to conduct a walkthrough. My home, a sanctuary meticulously designed for Mikey's well-being, was suddenly a crime scene. She noted everything with a clinical detachment that felt like a violation. The mattress on the floor, which prevented him from falling out and ensured a feeling of security. Noted. The plastic covers on the living room furniture, a safeguard against occasional toileting accidents related to his sensory processing disorder. Noted. The childproof locks on the cabinets containing cleaning supplies. All noted. I tried to explain the why behind each accommodation, to paint a picture of proactive, loving care. She cut me off with a whisper that felt like a physical blow. "That's what they all say." A phone call to her supervisor later, she delivered the verdict with a chilling finality, an emergency removal order. Mikey was to be placed with his closest relative. I frantically offered my mother's name, clinging to the hope of familiarity. The following 72 hours were a descent into a special kind of hell. The silence in the house was deafening, broken only by the phantom echoes of Mikey's laughter. The emptiness was a physical pain. My fear was eclipsed by a cold, sharp fury. This was no longer about a slight at a wedding. This was a calculated, malicious attempt to dismantle my life and take my son. Vanessa had declared war, and I was now ready to fight back with everything I had. My first call was to a lawyer, Elizabeth Reyes, who specialized in disability rights and family law. My second was to my mother, who confirmed CPS had inexplicably ignored my request and placed Mikey with a foster family. My third call was to Mikey's developmental pediatrician, Dr. Chen, whose outrage was a comforting fire. "Nobody messes with my patients," she declared. "We will fix this." The next few days were a blur of frantic activity. I became a documentarian of my own life as a father. I gathered years of medical records, therapy reports, his individualized education program, IEP, from school, and glowing testimonials from his teachers and our neighbors. Dr. Chen provided a powerful letter detailing the medical necessity of every single accommodation CPS had flagged. My neighbor, a special education teacher, wrote a character reference attesting to my devotion and competence. The supervised visit at the CPS office was agony. When Mikey was brought in, he looked lost and exhausted. The moment he saw me, his face crumpled, and he ran into my arms. "Daddy, I want to go home," he whispered, his small body trembling. The hour was a torturous glimpse of normalcy, ending in a heart-wrenching meltdown as they pried him away from me. Watching my son, my whole world, being carried down a sterile hallway, screaming for me, was a scene that will haunt me forever. The court hearing was the battlefield. Elizabeth was a force of nature, systematically dismantling the CPS worker's testimony by highlighting her lack of experience with autistic children. Dr. Chen's phone testimony was a masterclass, explaining how my parenting was not just adequate, but exemplary for a child with Mikey's needs. Then, Vanessa took the stand. She was a convincing liar, painting a picture of a disruptive child and an incompetent father. She claimed I manhandled Mikey and that she had been concerned for years. But Elizabeth's cross-examination was brutal. She exposed the timeline. The CPS call came mere hours after the wedding toast. She forced Vanessa to admit that other children were present, revealing her prejudice was specific to Mikey's disability. The judge saw through her. The removal order was dismissed, and Mikey was to be placed with my mother pending a final specialist's review. The victory was partial, but it was oxygen. Picking Mikey up from foster care was a moment of profound relief. He clung to me as if I were a life raft in a churning sea. "You'll be there too?" he asked anxiously about going to Grandma's. "Every day, buddy. I promise." The final blow to Vanessa's campaign came from an unexpected ally, her new husband, Thomas. He began sending me anonymous texts, warning me of her next moves, and eventually, he sent a damning video from the wedding reception. The timestamp proved Vanessa had called CPS just 5 minutes after showing her phone to a friend, likely reading them the false report she was about to make. With this evidence, and Thomas's eventual willingness to confirm the truth to our extended family, Vanessa's house of cards collapsed. My mother called a family meeting a modern-day tribunal. With the evidence laid bare, the video, the false reports, the specialist's glowing assessment of our home, the family's sympathy evaporated. They saw the vindictiveness for what it was. Vanessa was publicly and utterly shamed. Thomas left her. The cease and desist letter from my lawyer was now backed by the collective disapproval of our entire family. In the aftermath, an unexpected healing occurred. Family members who had once kept their distance now made efforts to include Mikey. They asked questions, they learned, they adapted. The ordeal, while traumatic, had burned away the pretense and forced a reckoning. Weeks later, at a family barbecue, I watched Mikey, initially hesitant, be pulled into a game by his cousins. He stood under a sprinkler, flapping his hands with joy, his laughter ringing out pure and clear. No one stared. Instead, they smiled. He was no longer the autistic cousin. He was just Mikey, part of the family. The war Vanessa had started to isolate us had, in the end, woven us more deeply into the fabric of our family than I ever thought possible. The scars remained, but they were reminders not just of the pain we endured, but of the love that ultimately proved stronger.